Sam Tighe, has ranked the top 15 most important players, Shaka, for each of the big six. And if there's anybody at this company that knows anything about rankings, it is indeed Shaka Hislop. So we're going to have you double check, we'll put it that way, double check, cross-reference Sam's work. Let's start with Arsenal. And we're not going to do everybody's top 15, okay? We're just going to do the top five here. Arsenal, of course, fourth right now, 9 points back of Liverpool, your league leaders. At 5, we got Declan Rice. 4, Gabriel Magalhaes. 3, William Saliba. 2, Bukayo Saka. And then 1, this is interesting because he has been hurt, Martin Odegaard. Shaka, did Sam get this right as far as Arsenal's top 5 is concerned?
Yeah, I think so. And to your point about Martin Odegaard, I'm not sure if Sam had done this list a month, 2 months ago, Martin Odegaard would have been top. But all of a sudden, because of that injury that you referenced, Seb, and Arsenal struggles as a result, you realize how important Martin Odegaard has been to Arsenal. With the others, and again, we probably would have said something totally different a month or 2 ago. If Bukayo Saka is out of the team, maybe they don't struggle as much as they have been over the last few weeks. Similarly with Saliba and Gabriel, if both are out, Arsenal have a problem. But if one is, you just feel that the other can make up for any slack, or Arsenal can certainly cope. And Arsenal have had to cope without Declan Rice because of suspension earlier this season. And again, you feel that it won't have as big an impact as we've seen over the last few weeks with Martin Odegaard after picking up his injury playing for Norway in the October transfer window. So I have no problem with Sam's list for Arsenal.
Shaka, it's not just about who's kind of in the list, it's who's not in the list. You look at that top 5, Kai Havertz not in that list. What does that say about the season he's having?
Up and down, which we've discussed. And in fairness to Kai Havertz, I don't think he's a number 9, a natural number 9. He can play there. He can play any number of positions, to be fair to him. At one point, he was used at left back for Germany. So, I don't mean this entirely as a swipe at Kai Havertz, but he's just not the number 9. I think you need to propel you past Manchester City, even with their struggles this season, or as we've seen so far this season, Liverpool, who have been surprisingly good under Arne Slot. Again, I think Kai Havertz not being on the list is no real surprise, though even without him, the likes of Gabriel Jesus, who has not been pulling up trees himself for quite some time, I might add, I'm not sure that how well Arsenal cope without Kai Havertz either. But in terms of just return, I'm not sure I'd have him on the list either.
All right, Shaka, that's Arsenal. Again, these are Sam Tighe's rankings of the top 15 most important players at the big 6 clubs in the Premier League. So if you got any issue with it, it's not Shaka you're taking issue with. It's Sam. Remember that. Yeah. Remember that. As you get active there, you keyboard warriors on social media, or I know here in the comments, Shaka, they always come for you in the comments. You got to be careful. All right, so let's go from Arsenal to Chelsea. They're actually even on points. Chelsea right now, 3rd in the Premier League. Let's see who Sam has in his top 5 most important players right now for Chelsea. Noni Madueke coming in there at 5th. Levi Colwill 4. Nicholas Jackson 3. Moises Caicedo 2. And Cole Palmer. I don't think much of a surprise there at number 1. Shaka, what do you think of this list?
I have absolutely no issue with this list. Absolutely.
Wow, look at that. Sam getting straight A's for his work.
Absolutely. And I think what you've seen, and in particular, I'm looking at number 2 and number 3 there, Caicedo and Jackson, and how good both of them have been this season. How good both of them have been in comparison to what we saw last season. Probably if we did a most improved list, Premier League list, Nicholas Jackson would probably be top of it. Given, I thought his struggles last season, I wondered if he'd be able to make the grade at a league like this. And then all of a sudden, what we've been seeing from Nicholas Jackson under Maresca for Chelsea, has been absolutely revealing. He really has everything about Nicholas Jackson's game. I think has improved. His hold-up play, even his finishing, I think has been so good this season. And now, while Caicedo struggled last season for Chelsea, we knew how good Caicedo was, given his performances for Brighton, which prompted Chelsea to pay the money that they did. And all of a sudden, that looked like a lot of money going to waste for all of, if not for most, if not all of last season. But this season, Moses Caicedo has certainly turned that around and is again proving himself to be one of the best defensive midfielders in the league.
You mentioned the money, Shaka, right? I feel like when we talk about Chelsea, you kind of have to talk about the money. And for all the money that they've spent, I feel like Cole Palmer, what was it, 40, 50 million? Like that's relatively not that much in today's market. What a bargain that seems like. The other side of that, though, is a guy like Enzo Fernandez, who's nowhere near this top five, and they spent over 100 million on that. Imagine spending $100 million on a player, and he's not even in, forget the league's top five most important players, not even your club's top five most important players. That's going to hurt you long term.
Of course it is. And we're talking about a World Cup winner as well, and Enzo Fernandez. Listen, again, maybe he struggled kind of given Chelsea's incompetence, let's call it that, last season, and that's not a swipe solely at the team, though of course the product on the pitch is everything to judge by. But Chelsea had so many issues even higher up for all of last season. There seemed to be a reshuffling, which I'll speak for myself, I questioned during the course of this summer. But certainly results have turned around, and at least we're not talking about ownership and ownership spats and who's to blame and whose money's being spent and everything else. But Enzo Fernandez probably has been the one whose stock has been hurt most by kind of Chelsea's boardroom chaos. And let's just leave it at that. To your point about Cole Palmer, and again, this kind of spoke to some of the chaos of Chelsea and their transfer policy. Cole Palmer was on the verge of joining West Ham, and then all of a sudden Chelsea come in at the 11th hour. I think I'm right in saying day before the end of the transfer deadline to swoop away Cole Palmer, who has just proven to be not only Chelsea's best player, but arguably one of the best players in the league. I know he hasn't had a good couple of weeks in a Chelsea shirt, but all in all, since his arrival at Stamford Bridge, I don't think you can question Cole Palmer's performance or his value to the team. So despite the chaos, at least Chelsea were able to get that one right, and thankfully so.
All right, so Cole Palmer having a great season for Chelsea right now, who are third in the table. Everybody chasing Liverpool. So let's go to Liverpool next. Again, this is Sam Tighe's ranking of the top 15 most important players at each of the big six. We're only going over the top five for each team. Here's Liverpool's top five, according to Sam. Konate at 5, Ryan Gravenberch there at number 4, Trent Alexander-Arnold 3, Mo Salah 2, and Virgil van Dijk 1. Did he get that 1-2 right, Shaka?
That's. I've got two questions about this list. Like, listen, 3, 4, and 5 we can argue about, and we can maybe chop and change. I would have Mo Salah ahead of Virgil van Dijk in that list. I just feel Liverpool are not Liverpool without Salah's goals. So for me, that is a bigger piece. And I know there's a broader conversation to be had about Liverpool and players going out of contract, but that's for another day. Right now, we're talking about who are Liverpool's most important players. I would have Mo Salah 1. The other question I would have is, and while I say we can discuss 3, 4, and 5 and the order of it. Where's Luis Diaz for me? I think he needs to be in that list. And exactly where and ahead of who? I probably would have Luis Diaz ahead of Gravenberch, and as a result, Konate drops out. But Gravenberch, again, has been good, has been that defensive midfielder that Liverpool have needed. But let me put it this way. If I were picking a team tomorrow and I had to pick one of Luis Diaz or Ryan Gravenberch, I'd pick Luis Diaz.
Okay. What about a guy like Darwin Núñez? I feel like when we say most important, we think of performance. But if Darwin Nunez started scoring goals, how important would this be for a Liverpool team that already is 5 points clear of second place City?
Yeah, the big issue there is if Darwin Nunez starts scoring goals. If you were 6'6", Sebi and could handle a basketball, you'd be very important to LA itself. But nobody's having that discussion. We'll have that discussion about Darwin Nunez's importance to Liverpool when he starts scoring goals. How about we settle on that, Mister Basketball? You 6'6", Sebi.
That's right. I was fantasizing about that, just seeing myself soaring through the air for a dunk, Shaka. You don't know about my hoops game back in the day.
Somebody saw you soaring through the air.
Yeah. Somebody threw me through the air if I was soaring through the air. That's the only way that happened. All right, so then let's move from Liverpool to Manchester United. Obviously, a total other side of the spectrum here, right? 13th in the table, having a terrible season, 4 wins from just 11 games played so far. 5, Lisandro Martinez. 4, Diogo Dalot. 3, Kobe Mino. 2, Andre Onana. And 1, Bruno Fernandes. Your thoughts, Shaka?
Diogo Dalot in that list? I don't fully appreciate. I've got no problem with 1, 2, or even 3. Kobe Mino in number 3. Diogo Dalot in on that list. I'm not sure I'd have him in that high. I'm not sure I'd have him in, and I'll be honest. Lisandro Martinez. I think when fit, he is one of Manchester United's more important players. I have no issue with that. The trouble is, and listen, it's part of the game, and shouldn't hold the player to fault for this. But Lisandro Martinez has just had to miss too many games for Manchester United. They've had to do without him, and now maybe that kind of signals how important he is to the team. But again, given the fact that they've had to cope without him, I'm not sure I'd have him in my list. Now, again, kind of given Manchester United's own struggles, I'm not sure who would have in, because I think everybody else has been that inconsistent for Manchester United that whatever name he threw up will be highly contentious, will be debatable.
Yeah, I think if you think of the great Manchester United teams the past, and you would have thought of their top 5s, one thing that would have been very different than this top 5 is that you would have had a lot more players that were further up the field. Yeah. You would have had a lot more attacking players, strikers. Bruno Fernandes here is the most attacking player. Everybody else, it probably does more defending than they do attacking. And that tells you a lot about what Manchester United's season has been like so far, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Nobody needs reminding that Manchester United have struggled by their own expectation. And for much of this season, by their own measure, even for last season, a team that finished in their lowest ever Premier League finish last season at 8th, somehow are managing to surpass that quite handsomely during the course of this season. Ruben Amorim has a big job on his hands. This list speaks to that job. And again, the kind of lack of attacking players. We could debate whether Rashford and certainly what we saw of Rashford in 2023, the second half of the 22-23 season post-World Cup, kind of signals how important he is to Manchester United. So if you're saying that when Rashford is good, Manchester United are a whole lot better, a better version of themselves, maybe he deserves to be in that list. But then his inconsistencies and his struggles, does he really deserve to be in that list? Rasmus Højlund, similarly. And that's a young player I like a lot, but a big ask in a position that when we're talking about the great Manchester United teams, you get a lot more from. So again, that's not his fault. He's been asked to do a job in a team that are shadow of them for themselves. And while he's giving as good as he possibly can, it's nowhere near what you would think of Manchester United, 10, 15 years ago, probably. But in terms of this team, probably deserves to be on that list.
Again, we're going over Sam Tighe's rankings of the most important players at each of the Premier League Big Six with the power rankings expert himself, Shaka Hislop. Let's move from Manchester United to Manchester City, who right now are in second place, 5 points back of your league leaders, Liverpool. And number 5, Sam's got Ruben Diaz. 4, Mateo Kovacic. 3, Josko Gvardiol. 2, Phil Foden. And number 1, Erling Haaland. Of course, no Rodri on this list. He was taken off of Sam's choices because of the injury. So, sans Rodri, Shaka, do you think this list looks just about right?
I'm not sure I'd have Gvardiol that high, if in the list at all. Certainly, just in terms of this 5, I would probably have him in at number 5, and then we could debate about Kovacic and Diaz and their order. I've got no problem with 1 and 2, even though by their own standards, you expect more of. And this is always the difficulty in discussing Erling Haaland. Say we expect more of Erling Haaland, but he just keeps breaking goal-scoring records left, right, and centre. But given his first season and where he set his own bar, you just wonder if there's yet more to come from Erling Haaland. And again, that's an unfair comparison to almost everybody else who's played in the Premier League. But in terms of comparing it to Erling Haaland of 2 seasons ago, probably on the money. And then similarly for Phil Foden, who probably hasn't featured enough this season, kind of given his return last season in particular. So I have no problem with 1 and 2, even though, again, by their own standards, by what we've come to expect of them over recent seasons, they aren't hitting the heights that we know they can. And then the others, again, there's certainly room for debate, particularly in terms of Gvardiol.
Shaka, if Rodri's healthy, is he number 1 on that list for you? Is he ahead of Erling Haaland?
Yeah.
Wow, you said that fast.
Yeah. Listen, no question. And while to my previous point, I'm not sure how you replicate the goals of Erling Haaland if he's not in the team. It's not a conversation, and especially how do you replicate those goals post Julian Alvarez, who I thought so highly of, and I sympathise with him, his wanting to move for more regular football. But how do you replicate? While we can discuss how we replicate those goals, the one thing we know is without Rodri, City are, and as we've seen, a shadow of their former selves. We saw that during the course of the last 2 seasons. Whenever he's out, and you make those comparisons to City without Rodri and with, that spoke volumes. And then now you're seeing City having to do without Rodri on a longer term basis. And yeah, you see the impact it's having.
All right, so that's City. They're second. Last on our list here, Spurs, who right now sit 10th in the Premier League table. Here's a look at the top 5 most important players for Ange Postecoglou through the first 11 games of the Premier League season. According to Sam Ty, you can read his article over at ESPN.com. Mickey van de Ven, number 1, Kulusevski 2, Christian Romero 3, Dominic Solanke 4, and Heung-min Son in at number 5. Shaka, what do you think of this list? Makes sense to you?
I'd probably have Solanke a whole lot higher. I think Spurs need that out-and-out striker. They've missed that, and you saw that in the first 2 or 3 games when Solanke was still trying to settle in. I thought Spurs maybe didn't hit the heights that you would come to expect. So I'd probably have him above even Kulusevski. You can't have him above Van de Ven. I think just kind of given the way that Postecoglou wants Spurs to defend that very high line, Van de Ven is absolutely crucial to it. Again, a player, and this is something you and I would never have to worry about. When you're that quick, you keep pulling hamstrings. You and I don't have that issue at all. We can't. But that's an issue that has proven to be an issue for Spurs. Van de Ven makes any mistake with that high line just seem kind of irrelevant because of how quickly he eats up the ground. So number 1, no question whatsoever. But I would have Solanke a whole lot higher. And again, I'll say that that is not taking anything away from Kulusevski and the role that he plays in this team, because he is, if he's third behind Solanke, it's a very, very close third.
Mm. Yeah, I remember the conversations that we were having in the summer about Spurs early in the season before Solanke settled in. I think maybe there was like a Newcastle game where they just had a million chances and had nobody in the box to put it home. And you knew that, if Solanke could make that fit, he would definitely be, a very important part to this team. It is weird to see a list of Spurs' most important players and see Heung-min Son as low as 5. I know that's a reflection of the current reality, but my goodness, you think of all that he's been for that club, and to see him, see 4 names ahead of him is just still a bit jarring.
It really is. It really is. But to your point, Seb, you're absolutely right. This season, I think that's who Heung-min Son has been for Spurs. He has been at that number five position. Now, if we want to talk about over the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons, if we want to go a whole lot further, Heung-min Son is right up there with the very best, the most important Spurs players for quite some time, in all honesty. He really is. But just this season, and it comes to every single football player. This season, he's nowhere near as important to Spurs and the way they play as he has been previously. But again, don't let this list take away from how good a player he has been, how important a player he has been for Spurs over the years.